Hello, guys, and welcome. Today, we're going to learn about globalization and media. But first, know that this video is only for educational purposes. Our group has given our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, a permission to use this as a teaching material. So let's us proceed. In this presentation, the listeners should be able to understand about the globalization and its relationship with media. To start off, let us first define media. So what is media? Media is the plural form of medium. Broadly speaking, describes any channel of communication. This can include anything from printed paper to digital data and encompasses art, news, educational content, and numerous other forms of information. Anything that can reach or influence people, including phones, televisions, and internet, can be considered a form of media. Now, there are two types of media. Print media and electronic media are two of the major forms of media. Print media is one of the oldest means of disseminating information. It is a form of advertising that uses physical printed media like newspapers, magazines, books, leaflets, brochures, etc. Print media has the ability to reach a wider section of people. It is produced by printing, a process in which it produces text and images on paper using ink in a printing press. Electronic, on the other hand, refers to all means of sharing information except the print media, such as radio, television, internet. It is a media that can be shared on electronic devices for the audience viewing and can be broadcasted to the wider population. It is also a powerful version of media that has visual appeal and is more convincing as people can listen to the radio, see live or pictures of events on television, and can view or read text or images on smartphones. The two forms of mass media, for example, print media and electronic media, is proved helpful in implementing change in people's habits, beliefs, and attitudes. It also makes people aware of different types of crimes and wrongdoings going on in the society, as well as it also helps people getting updated about the various government policies and changes in the process. So, what is globalization? Globalization is a term used to describe how trade and technology have made the world into a more connected and interdependent place. Globalization also captures in its scope the economic and social changes that have come about as a result. It may be pictured as the threads of an immense spiderweb formed over millennia, with the number and reach of these threads increasing over time. People, money, material goods, ideas, and even disease have traveled these silken strands and have done in greater numbers and with greater speed than ever in the present age. At the most basic level, globalization is a cultural movement that helps people and information across national borders. The ease of movement of information and people and cultural exchanges that leads to interaction between people in different locations. Improvement in people-to-people contacts have encouraged the intermingling of cultural practices and customs. It has allowed people to exchange ideas, behaviors, and values with other countries. Globalization is driven by technology. Globalization and technology are intimately intertwined. This movement of people, the goods, ideas are accelerated and broadened by new forms of transport and communication. And technological development is, in turn, enhanced by the diversity of ideas and the increased scale that comes from the global reach. This helps the integration of economies and societies all over the world. People, companies, and economies are more integrated and interconnected than ever before. This helps facilitate connections, which leads to specialization, innovation, and economic progress. Through these connections, economies have benefited from the knowledge and experience of others and learn how to replicate or adapt ideas for their own needs. Globalization is often seen as a global westernization. On this point, there is a substantial agreement among many proponents and opponents. Those who take an upbeat view of globalization see it as a marvelous contribution of Western civilization to the world. Over a thousand of years, globalization has contributed to the progress of the world through travel, trade, migration, spread of cultural influences, and dissemination of knowledge and understanding. Globalization, according to some, is a type of capitalist expansion characterized by the fusion of local and national economies into a global, unrestrained market economy. Globalization is primarily an economic phenomenon, but it is also influenced by interaction and debates among transnational capitalist institutions, governments, and international organizations. The institution that supports global capitalism, but particularly transnational corporations, are its main supporters, but it also requires the strong hand of governments to create the right environment for it to thrive. One criticism about globalization is that in its base that it is based from colonialism and imperialism, or a belief that a nation should be molded like a Western nation, which often facilitate and spread the Western products, brands, and media. In this slide, we're going to talk about the oversimplified views of globalization, which includes the idea of global villages. The term global villages has been used to express the idea that people throughout the world are interconnected through the use of new media technologies. The term was coined in the early 1960s by a Canadian media theorist, Marshall McLuhan, who was writing about the newer technologies of his day, such as radio and television. It is also included the homogeneity, in which it is an aspect of cultural globalization, listed as one of its main characteristics, and refers to the reduction in cultural diversity through the popularization and diffusion of wide array of cultural symbols, not only physical objects but customs, ideas, and values. It is defined as the process by which local cultures are transformed or absorbed by a dominant outside culture. Cultural homogenization has been called perhaps the most widely discussed hallmark of global culture. The world is developing day after day, especially through globalization. And globalization made the world one big country in which the interaction between nations became easier. Countries became more connected to each other through globalization, which gave them the opportunity to create the concept of new economy. Globalization encourages democratic institutions which promote democracy. As the global market relies on the capitalist democratic values, it is inevitable that organizations that reinforce these values are rewarded, meaning they can expand into countries with other forms of government and promote these ideals. In inclusion, in conclusion, the question of globalization and the spread of democracy is a complex one. On the other hand, it may be considered a threat to, to democracy as it is believed that it undermines the essential requirements of the state autonomy, of patriotism, and of national identity.
Today, I will discuss to you about the relationship between globalization and mass media or media. But before I will discuss to you the relationship between globalization and media, I will first discuss to you what globalization and media means. So globalization. Globalization is a term used to describe how trade and technology have made the world into a more connected and independent place. Globalization also captures in its scope the economic and social changes that have come about as a result. So that is globalization. So media or mass media. So what does mass media means or media mean? So mass media refers to a diverse array of media technologies that reach a large audience via mass communication. The technologies through which this communication takes place include a variety of outlets. Broadcast media transmit information electronically via media such as films, radio, recorded music, or television. So we go back to the relationship between globalization and media. So globalization connects to the media. What is the connection of globalization to the media? The connection of globalization to the media, as you can see in the PowerPoint, is cultural exchange, interconnectivity, and the media also connects to the globalization. As you can see in the PPT, the media connects to the globalization about technological advancement, greater communication. So I will let you see the example of global and local in the globalization. As you can see in the PPT, they are trading information, the global information and the local information, to create a good media in the society. So next, I so added knowledge. The mass media are today seen as playing a key role in enhancing globalization and facilitating cultural exchange and multiple flows of information and images between countries through international news, broadcast television programming, new technologies, film, and music. So in short, mass media helps increase the globalization in our society or in our country. So next, I will discuss to you what homogenization means. So homo- homogen- homogenization is a is an aspect of cultural globalization listed as one of its main characteristics and refers to the reduction in cultural diversity through the popularization and diffusion of a wide array of cultural symbols. So that is homogenization means. Plus heterogenization. So what is heterogenization means? So heterogenization means uh, heterogenization represents a process which leads to a more inwardly appearing world due to the intensification of flows across cultures. So homogenization plus heterogenization equals hybridity. So what does hybridity means? Hybridity could hybridity means that it could be closely called as an item that involve the process or activities of blending of local cultural with foreign and through economic generating effort and make adjustments to fit cultural norms of adapted adapted destination. So I'll give you an example about hybridity. So here are example of hybridity. The example of hybridity are the global restaurant chains like McDonald's, KFC, Jollibee, and other global restaurant fast food chains. Um, so global restaurant fast food chains mo- modifying modifying their menus to suit the taste or more of different cultures. So that is the example of hybridity. So next, I will discuss to you what does glo- globalization means. So globalization means uh, global, globalization indicates that the growing importance of continental and global levels is occurring together with the increasing salience of local and regional levels. So here are some example of localization. Um, Global foundation plus local adaptation are one example of localization, and like the other competition like singing contest, that is the example of localization.
So, globalization and media. So, online news media, global access to news, immediacy. So, in a world of increasingly porous borders, the line between foreign and domestic blur for news just a blur for culture. So, local variation. Relevance to region. So, the meaning of relevance to region is regions are territories that are specific and recognizable in physical, geographical, historical, and socio-economic terms so that citizens are identified with them. The region is a link between local communities and the state. So the regional level of government brings together jobs at the local nation level. That's the example of relevance to region. So next is a local coverage styles. So what is a local coverage style? So, the section state, for purposes of this section, the term local coverage determination means determination by a fiscal intermediary or a carrier under Part A or Part B as applicable respecting whether or not particular items or service is covered on a intermediary or a carrier-wide basis under such parts. So that's the example of coverage style. So next, severe acute respiratory syndrome SARS. So this is the example of severe acute respiratory syndrome SARS. So global coverage, this is more regions. China, more focus on surveillance and local reporting. Less affected regions from US and UK, more general analytical information. So next is a mediascape. Mediascape, transnational flows of media. So example, how and where media is distributed. So the how and where is distributed is so the channel you use to distribute your content will vary based on your audience and resources. So there are three overarching types of content distribution: channels that cover a number of more specific distribution channels, own, earn, and pay. That's the answer of how and where media is distributed. So next, dependent on technologies of region. So the dependent technologies of region is despite the convenience created by technology, people have become too dependent on technology. Everyday life activities are managed through technological gadgets and application. So people now rely on alarms to wake up. So there is the use of phones to check the time and constant communication throughout the day. So next, narrative and visual components. So next, online news media global spread information varies country to country. So media images can reinforce existing ideologies. So what is a reinforce existing ideologies? So media ideologies are a set ideas or belief that people have regarding different kinds of technologies. People use their media ideologies to form opinions on a media technology, on how it used. So next, media flows across geographic boundaries. So this is the meaning of media flows across geographic boundaries. So it talks in a particular at the way media genres travel and how their circulation raises issue about cultural power of certain media narratives in specific historical and political and social condition of consumption. So that's the example of media flows across geographic boundaries. So The next, media takes on different forms locally versus globally. So, the example or the meaning of media takes on different forms locally and globally is the media have an important impact on cultural globalization in so mutually or in interdependent ways. Firstly, the media provide an extensive transnational transmission of cultural products. And secondly, they contribute to the information of communicative networks and social structures. So next, global media may reinforce certain existing structure. So the meaning of global media may reinforce certain existing is wait. The influence has an effect on many aspects of human life, which can include voting a certain way, individual views and belief, or skewing a person's knowledge of a specific topic due to being false information. So next, so that's all. Thank you.